This is the vivo X80 Pro, the latest flagship device with vivo's V1 Plus imaging chip. It's designed for professional smartphone photography. And this is the Honor Magic4 Pro, Honor's latest answer to the increasingly competitive market for flagship phones focused on photography functions. So why don't we put these two phones side by side to see which one has an overall better image system? Welcome to the ultimate camera test between the X80 Pro and the Magic4 Pro. First of all, let's start with the easiest conditions by comparing them in daytime exterior environments, where they will have ample light for producing the best images possible. Starting with the mean wide camera, we can see that the X80 Pro's image looks sharper, with more details of the motorcycle in the shadows compared with the Magic4 Pro. Moving to the next image, it seems like the Magic4 Pro looks sharper with more subtle details of the road sign than the X80 Pro, meaning it's a tie between the two devices. The next image is kind of interesting because if we only look at sharpness, it seems like the X80 Pro wins in this category. However, for some reason, the white balance on the X80 Pro is just not that great. Well, the Magic4 Pro's white balance is quite accurate and makes the whole image look natural. And we can see similar patterns in other images as well. So for the main cameras, I would say they are both fantastic, and they don't disappoint when you want to capture good scenery, like this sample shot. Next, moving on to the ultra-wide. We can see the ultra-wide cameras on both phones produce similar results. If we look closely, it seems like the X80 Pro has an advantage in terms of sharpness, but it can be a little oversaturated. However, when we are shooting something that is backlit, then the Magic4 Pro starts to suffer from lens flares, while the X80 Pro handles it with a breeze, thanks to its Zeiss T star coating. Other than that, both the ultra-wide lenses are again quite capable, with the Magic4 Pro having slightly better color balance in the image. Finally, let's compare the telephoto lenses on these two phones. And since the X80 Pro has two telephoto cameras, while the Magic4 Pro only has one, we are just going to compare all of them. And the result is quite straightforward. As we can see, the telephoto camera on the Magic4 Pro is quite impressive, and it has all the details and contrast that you would expect in a good lens. If we compare it to both the 2x and the 5x zoom on the X80 Pro, the Magic4 Pro still manages to beat the X80 Pro in sharpness and contrast. However, things start to get a little inconsistent when we move to a place with less light available. In this image, we can see that the Magic4 Pro is sharper and has all the highlight information retained. But when we take the same image from another angle, the opposite happens. Now the X80 Pro looks sharper with more details and with all the highlights retained, while the Magic4 Pro has all the highlights blown out, which is quite interesting. Overall, as long as there is an ample amount of light, I would say that both phones produce fantastic images, with the telephoto lenses on the Magic4 Pro being a little better than the X80 Pro. However, what about nighttime photography? This is where things get interesting because if you have been following Vivo for a while, you would know that they have their own V1 Plus imaging chip. So let's see if it really makes a big difference in nighttime photography. Again, starting with the mean wide camera, we can see that the power of the V1 Plus starts to kick in. In this image, it is clear that the X80 Pro looks sharper, and if you look closely, there is less unwanted digital noise in the shadows, which is something most phone companies try to reduce in order to create a clear image. Now this image is where we can see the real difference of having a custom-built imaging chip. Because while the X80 Pro produces sharp images, the photo coming out from the Magic4 Pro is noticeably blurrier, as if it wasn't focused properly, and the same applies to other similar images as well. As for the ultra-wide and the telephoto, unfortunately, they just cannot compare with the X80 Pro. The images from the Magic4 Pro's ultra-wide and telephoto lenses are sometimes overexposed, and they sometimes mess up the white balance, so I would say that the X80 Pro wins in this category. But there is one more thing about the Magic4 Pro that surprises us, and that is the Magic Log. In other words, both the X80 Pro and the Magic4 Pro allow you to shoot videos in a cinematic aspect ratio to mimic a film-like look while only using your phones. Now, when we take a look at the cinematic videos coming out from these phones, we can see how good the Magic 4 Pro really is. If we apply some color grading, music, and sound effects to it and take a look, it really feels like a clip from a short film. On the other hand, the cinematic videos from the X80 Pro are only kind of okay. But if we only shoot normal videos instead of cinematic videos, then the X80 Pro beats the Magic 4 Pro. Also, there's one more thing other than the image quality, and that is the user experience. Both the Magic 4 Pro and the X80 Pro need a couple of seconds to fully process the image you take. And this is why you see the photos changing right in front of you after taking them. In my test, the X80 Pro could finish processing in 2 seconds, while the Magic 4 Pro needs 4 seconds to complete. Also, when shooting videos at 60 frames per second, we get a better preview on the X80 Pro. If we look at the Magic 4 Pro, the video preview just looks kind of laggy, and the reason is that while both phones are shooting at 60 frames per second, the Magic 4 Pro is only showing a 30 frame per second preview, and this is why it looks kind of laggy. So in terms of user experience, I feel like the X80 Pro does a better job. Alright, so after all the testing, which one has a better camera system? Honestly, if we're looking for a camera system that can handle every kind of environment, then I would say go with the X80 Pro. On the other hand, if you have a controlled environment where you have an ample amount of light to play with, then the Magic 4 Pro could give you better results if you know how to control and utilize different light sources. However, one thing to keep in mind is that both the X80 Pro and the Magic 4 Pro are phones, not cameras. As for the camera test, these are my results, and I hope those sample shots are useful. If you want to see a proper review of these two phones, click here. Again, for tech and gadgets, we got you covered, and I will see you next time.